Hello everyone, we are ready for chapter 45 of The Treasure Hunter's Tale, and then later on today I'm going to do an update on my wheelchair. So there we go, that's what you've got to look forward to. Here we go. I'll turn it off then, that would have been annoying. Did I say 45 or 44? It's chapter 45, okay? That's just how my day's going. The next day, Miss Wait-on-the-Lord visited again, and Mrs. Beloved of the King invited her to come and live with them. This was something she had discussed with the family that morning as she laid out the fact that although Miss Wait-on-the-Lord's medication was helping her, she was still clearly in much pain and was struggling to live on her own. Miss Wait-on-the-Lord was at first very reluctant, as although she was desperate to accept the offer, having long struggled with being alone, for the loneliness as well as the day-to-day struggles of living with a physical disability. But Mrs. Beloved of the King was very truthful with her and told her how much she had missed her mother, and she felt it was an answer to prayer, their meeting. And so it was that Miss Wait-on-the-Lord came to live with the family, and oh, what a joy it was for her to now have the sound of children's voices and to be able to feel useful, even if it was just to tell Ian stories while his mother was busy. She felt she had purpose once more, and the whole family loved her very much. Hope, although she had instantly loved her new grandmother, had taken a little longer to be open with her, and the old lady prayed for the opportunity to talk to Hope in a way that made her feel completely comfortable. One day it happened. Miss Wait-on-the-Lord was sitting in the sunny kitchen shelling peas for the tea when Hope came running in from the outside. It made Miss Wait-on-the-Lord jump and spill her peas because Hope was supposed to be in school at that time, and so she was most surprised to see her rushing in. She was about to lovingly scold the child for leaving school so early, but then she noticed that Hope was in floods of tears. Hope never cried loudly, but her tears would just stream. "Oh, what is it, my child?" said the old woman, clearly distressed to see young Hope so distraught. Her hair was all messed up, and she had grazed elbows and knees. Hope flew to her grandmother and collapsed in her lap. Miss Wait-on-the-Lord was now really alarmed. "What is it, darling?" she said. "Have you been hurt?" Miss Wait-on-the-Lord knew that Hope was often bullied for her faith at school, but she could sense that this was a more difficult situation. Hope couldn't speak for crying, but all Miss Wait-on-the-Lord's untapped motherly instincts kicked in, and seeing that the grazes were only minor, she just sat and stroked Hope's hair and rocked her until her sobs became more rhythmical. After a long time of being just held by her grandmother, Hope looked up into her face. "Thank you," she sniffed. "I needed that." "Now, my darling one, tell me what happened." Hope sat up. "I was beaten up by a gang of girls," she sniffed again. Miss Wait-on-the-Lord could feel her protective instincts kicking in, and there was a part of her that wanted to march down to the school and have it out with the bullies there and then, but she carried on stroking Hope. "Go on," she said. "Well," said Hope, "it's not like they haven't bullied me before," she said, shrugging a little. "You know what, with the armour and everything," she said, patting her armour lovingly. Miss Wait-on-the-Lord smiled. That was something she did a lot too. "But this time," went on Hope, "I don't know, it was just different. Normally I could just shrug it off and then have a good cry when I get home, and then it's all okay, but this time they seemed meaner." "Did they hurt you?" asked Miss Wait-on-the-Lord, trying not to sound too cross. "Yes, but again, that's normal for them," said Hope matter-of-factly. "I don't know, today was just different. I just felt it more than usual," she said. "Oh, Hope," said her grandmother, holding her head in her hands and looking deep into her eyes. "You are truly a brave young lady." Hope's eyes filled with tears. "That's just it," she sobbed. "Normally I am, but today I wasn't. It's just got on top of me, I guess." "But Hope, darling," said the wise old woman lovingly, "you are brave. I know you have been bullied for your faith, and to run off rather than fight back is a very brave thing to do." "But I'll get into trouble for leaving school," sobbed Hope. "You leave that to me," said her grandmother, with such vigour that Hope felt quite protected. "You can stay here today, and I will discuss everything with your parents. I have an idea, but I need to discuss it with them first," she said, her eyes sparkling. "In the meantime, I had better send a message to the school to let them know you are safe." And she wrote a quick note and sent it with the postman, who thankfully was just walking up the path. For the rest of the day, Hope helped her grandmother with the peas and then the ironing and other chores. They had a lovely time together and truly bonded. Hope opened up to her about her struggles and her worries, and Miss Wait-on-the-Lord shared some of hers. They became real kindred spirits, as of course Miss Wait-on-the-Lord had experienced ill treatment as a young woman on the ship. When the children were all finally in bed, Miss Wait-on-the-Lord set her plan before Mr. Newhart and Mrs. Beloved of the King. Now, my dears, she began, I wouldn't normally do this, but I think Hope might benefit from being homeschooled, even if it's just for a little while. She's been being bullied for years at that school, and it has really taken its toll on her, she said passionately. Hope's parents looked at one another. They too had been noticing the tired eyes and the grazes and tears of their daughter, but they had been at a loss of what to do to help her. I know it would be good for her to have a rest from it all, said Mrs. Beloved of the King sadly. We just don't have the time to school her here. Daniel has the church to run, and I have my visits and other missions. Freddie is busy with the shop. Her words tailed off, and she felt quite hopeless to not be able to help her own child. But I can help, the old lady smiled, leaning forward in earnest. Before I was taken by the pirates, I had started training to be a teacher, and I have always loved helping children learn. And I can teach Hope in a way that the king would like, so she doesn't get taught all that nonsense about coming from monkeys and other such rot, as if it's fact. The parents smiled at one another. They loved the fire that old Miss Wait-on-the-Lord had for this plan, and they readily agreed. Miss Wait-on-the-Lord was so pleased. Now she had bonded well with Hope, she looked forward to being able to spend quality time with her and teaching her homemaking as well as her lessons. Hope was so relieved the next day when her family sat her down and discussed it with her. She didn't want to feel like she was escaping from school, but the idea of having a rest from the bullying was quite lovely to her, and her little heart burst with thanks to the king and to her dearest darling grandmother. Oh, thank you, she cried, hugging her parents. That's such a wonderful plan. And then she started sobbing, and all the tension she had been holding in for what turned out to be many years of constant torment from her peers and even some of her teachers just flowed out. Her entire body shook, and she felt sick and ran out into the garden and threw up in the bushes. Poor Hope really had endured a lot, and clearly hadn't shared just how awful the bullying had made her feel, which was now evidenced to her family by this violent reaction. Her mother rushed out to help her, and Ian took her a glass of water. Freddie and Mr. Newhart felt like they hadn't protected Hope as she needed, and the whole family felt quite wretched for that moment when they realised what a toll it had taken on the poor girl. Hope came back inside. She was rather pale, but she looked happier. Sorry about that, she said. I think it was the relief. Her whole family hugged her. That hug was something Hope had needed for a long time, but she had put on a brave face. But now, oh, how lovely and comforting it was to feel the love and care and protection of her family once more. Well then, Hope, said Miss Wait-on-the-Lord matter-of-factly, you had better go and get into some comfy clothes, for you shall not need a school uniform in my class. She smiled at Hope, and her eyes were twinkling. Now run and get your books, my dear, for class will begin in 5 minutes. Hope hugged her again and then ran off upstairs with a lighter step than she had used in a very long time. My, how that child has suffered, and we didn't really know it, said Mr. Newhart quietly, with great self-reproach in his voice. She always seemed to just be coping, said his wife, with tears in her eyes, and now to see what that poor girl has been going through. She put her hands over her face and took a deep breath. Well, she said, now to inform the school. And then she turned to her husband. Coming, dear? She said in a voice that sounded like she was rallying the troops. Right with you, my love, said Hope's father, wanting to make things right as soon as possible. The parents practically marched out of the door. They had it in their mind to give the head teacher a real piece of their mind, but Ian, who was going to school, couldn't walk that quickly, so by the time they reached the school gates, they had calmed down enough to be wise and not bluster in like Father and Mother Bear protecting their cubs.